by no longer having something above or below you, by making everything equal, which you can do by pulling down, you sort of are creating a oneness of life where there's nothing separate from you. And so I think in a lot of like the debauchery and stuff that comes up in the album, through transgressive acts, you can reach a sort of spiritualism.
Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. Hope you had a great weekend. I most certainly did. We are now in the second week of Vox and Hops Sober February 2022, which is presented by Pitch Black North, the Satanic Tea Company. I'm just so damn stoked to have Pitch Black North as a part of Sober February 2022. In case you are not aware as to who Pitch Black North is, every sip is blasphemy. All of their products are ethically sourced, expertly crafted, and they are made in small batches. You'd think that Pitch Black North, the Satanic Tea Company, only makes tea, but that's not true. They also have some coffee. If you head on over to their website, pitchblacknorth.com, that's pitchblacknorth.com, you will see that they have two coffees up there right now. They got their Satanic Coffee Medium available, and they also have something super cool, which is the Crucifixion of Christ. The Crucifixion of Christ is a diabolical blend of their classic vanilla Earl Grey tea with some of their satanic coffee beans. If you were to pick up some of their products right now, you can use the promo code VOXHOPS15, that's VOXHOPS15, and you will save 15% off of your entire purchase. By doing this, you will not only be getting some of the best satanic tea and coffee out there, but you will also be supporting the podcast. So head on over to pitchblacknorth.com and use that promo code VOXHOPS15, and you will save and support the podcast at the same time. This Vox and Hops episode is presented by Heavy Montreal. Heavy Montreal is Montreal's premier metal promoter. They put on a bunch of sick shows all year long. They are announcing a bunch of them recently. I just can't wait to get back into a venue and get blasted with extreme metal while enjoying some beers with my friends. I am greatly looking forward to that. I am beyond stoked to have Heavy Montreal behind the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I'd just like to ask you to follow the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. But more than that, I'm also asking you to tell a friend about the podcast. If there's someone in your life that just loves metal, someone that you grew up listening to metal to, someone that you went to your first concerts with, well, first off, you should hit them up and tell them that you miss them, and then let them know that the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast exists. You could tell them that there are over 300 episodes for them to check out with some of the world's best metal musicians, and it's available on all podcast platforms. If you would encourage one of your friends to become a future Vox and Hops head, that would be something that I would truly appreciate. Now, on today's episode, I'm with Dylan Neal of THIEF. This is Vox and Hops episode number 323.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm with Dylan Neal of THIEF and ex-botanist. Dylan, how are you doing? Big fan of what you do. I have been for quite some time now, so I'm very, very excited to have a conversation with you today. Let's start with a very easy one. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Woke up, went for a walk, got some coffee, and here I am. It's early morning here. Well, it's like 11.
I love it. It's amazing. It's the perfect interview time. My 2 p.m. Saturday slot that I've been keeping for the past 2 years. I love it because I can talk to people in the morning on the West Coast here in Canada, in Montreal, sorry. It's 2 p.m. and then I can still talk to people in Europe, and it's like 7 p.m. for them. So it's like the perfect interview time. I love it. Let's talk a deeper, darker question. How did you cope with this glorious year? This glorious lingering year that is lingered into the next year? How did you cope with 2020, 2021, hypothetically a little bit of 2022? How have you been coping with these glorious days?
Pretty well, actually. I hate to say it because I know it's a lot of suffering involved, but I'm an introvert. I like staying at home, so I just had more time for music, reading, video games. I didn't mind it, so really wasn't too much for me. It was, of course, it was scary, especially in the beginning. No one knew what was going on, and I've got elderly parents and stuff, but all things considered, pretty good.
I'm very, very happy that you enjoyed taking time to be inside and to write a really cool record.
Thanks. Yeah.
I appreciate that because I've been a huge fan since the Map of Lost Keys came out. I typically always listen to Apple's suggested playlist of the new music while I'm cooking on Sundays, and they put one of your tracks in there. I can't remember exactly which track it was, but it intrigued me. I walked from the kitchen to the iPhone to see what this band was. What is this? Who is this? And that doesn't happen all the time. And then I downloaded the album, enjoyed that very much. I remember putting it as an album of the week for Vox&Hops early on when I started doing those. And then I was asked to have a conversation with you today about your new record, and I love it just as much. It's much more dark. It's much more evil. We're going to get into that later. But first, we're going to talk about beer because it is Vox&Hops. Vox&Hops is all about hanging out with my metal friends, talking about their lives, music, and craft beer. Now, this is a sober February episode, and you don't actually drink beer anymore. But talk to me about your very first beer before we dig into why you don't drink beer anymore.
Sure. Oh, my very first beer. I remember it was a Tecate, however you want to say it. I don't know if you have them up there. It's just
absolutely, the Mexican lager.
Yeah. I had it at, I think I was, I don't know, 15 or something, maybe 16, and there was a Mexican restaurant that did not check your ID, so we would go there and order a pitcher and drink it as quickly as we could. That was my first beer.
Since you are not drinking beer with me today, what are you drinking, Dylan? You mentioned you went to go get a cup of coffee. Is there something special going on there?
I am drinking a Cafe Latte. I usually make my own breve, but I've been a little too lazy to go out and get some nice espresso grounds. So I went out today, and this Korean bakery. I live in Koreatown, and they make pretty good beverage.
That is amazing. I know what I'm going to drink with you to make this the perfect episode. Just 1 second. As you were talking, I was like, I have something. On my side, I'm going to be drinking something very cool, something that came out last year. This is Cryptopsy's None So Vile Max Caffeinated Coffee from Grindcore Coffee Company. This shit is rocket fuel. You drink this, your brain just explodes. And the first time I had this, actually, I just cleaned my entire house and rebuilt my daughter's bed into a bunk bed, which was something that was like in the back of my mind that I was supposed to be doing for forever, and I just never did it. But that day I had the fuel to do it. Really brutal. It's still available now, I believe. If it's not, we're definitely going to make more.
Wow, I want that.
Grindcore Coffee, absolute rules.
I want that. That's not to toot your horn too much, although it was, I think, pre your time, but that's maybe it's top 3 greatest death metal whatever albums of all time.
Well, thank you, and I agree that it is very important and influential on many, many, many bands, and I say it all the time whenever I'm being the guest on an interview. They didn't rest on their laurels. They could have kept putting out None So Vile Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, like a lot of extreme metal bands did, but Cryptopsy decided to be different, and we continue to do so today. But back to you. So now you do not enjoy Tecates illegally because you're too young. At what point did you stop enjoying beer?
It's not that I stopped enjoying it. I stopped enjoying the repercussions of my beer intake. Okay. Let's see. I think around 2012 is when I had to give up the drink. I just was, I just had no control over it. It just kept getting worse and worse, and I was getting into harder and harder drugs, and and would stop and try different things and, you know, have like a month of sobriety or whatever. And it just like, I always just went back to drinking too much. It runs in my family.
Okay.
And
what's those moments when you would do those sober months and then you would feel like you're ready to get back into it, but then it's just a trick that you're doing to yourself, basically?
Yeah, I would pretty much pick up right back where I left off, you know, which is either, you know, I'd say like, I'm just going to have 1 or 2 drinks tonight. And then I fucking wake up on the floor at 2 a.m. and I'm like, what the fuck? Or, you know, a lot of times I wouldn't make it a month. You know, I would set a time, you know, that I wouldn't drink and have no good reason to. And I'd just be like, fuck it, I'm going to drink, you know?
And then there's the shame with that.
Shame, yeah. And then just fucking, you know, getting in trouble, you know, either friends or the law or whatever crazy shit I was getting into. Yeah.
No, so you definitely made the right choice to move forward. If there's someone out there listening right now that feels like they're in that same situation, what would you say to them? Say one of your closest friends was there listening to you right now, and you know that they're basically where you were back then.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? What would you have liked to have heard from a close friend that actually made sense to you?
I'm not sure there's much you can say. You know, I would just say like, you know, it's only a problem if you find yourself unable to control your drinking or the amount you're drinking, and that you're having, you know, your drinking is causing you consequences in your life. And if that's the case, you know, you might want to look into sobriety, you know, try it on your own. You could try 12-step. You could maybe, if it's real bad, do rehab, like no shame, you know, it's all chemical. And you know, reach out if you know anyone that's sober, reach out, you know. So many different ways people get sober, you know, 12-step, smart programs, whatever.
There is no one right way. That's true. And having done Sober February episodes before and spoken to many people that have gone through it, each person's path is different.
Absolutely.
And the most important thing is getting to the end of that path and living life one day at a time, most of the time.
Yeah. It's you know, it's sort of like religion. Like, of course, there's no one right religion, and it's different people are suited for different paths, and it really doesn't matter. The end path is like to be sober and happy, you know. So take your pick, whatever works for you. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think it's really important to talk about these subjects to spread the word about balance and the fact that it is an illness, you know, because people can't control themselves. It's not because you wake up and you want to go and do this.
Yeah.
It's something that overtakes you. It's an addiction. It's
Yeah. I mean, I thought, you know, for a long time in my head, an alcoholic or an addict was someone that was, you know, laying in the gutter 5 days a week.
That's not true. There's a lot of high functioning alcoholics and drug users out there.
Yeah. And I came to find like it's my life circumstances were a little different, but I was sort of suffering from what seemed to be the same thing, which was an inability to stop, you know, or stay stopped when I would stop, you know. And it was really quite interesting to sort of watch it once I became more aware of it, of how much willpower, like it's not part of it. It's like if you're starving, even though you know you're not starving, you're gonna eat. You'll do whatever you can to eat. You know, it's pretty wild.
What about these circle of friends that was around that? Did you have to cut some ties? Did you have to, or were other people more like, oh, finally he saw the light?
You know, I had 1 or 2 lower companions that, you know, I sort of realized that we were just around each other to use or drink,
enabling each other.
But other than that, like I still have I'm still friends with all my old friends, and I think they're the ones that were aware of it, you know, were especially grateful and, you know, happy and encouraging for me.
What were the hardest moments of going to a party afterwards.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember your first party back, and how did you get through that night?
Yeah, let me think. I didn't really start smoking cigarettes until after I got sober,
Okay.
because it's just a
Yep.
social thing to have and to be, I don't know, to have something to do. So I think cigarettes and having like kombucha or some carbonated water, just fucking doing that. And also like driving myself to parties was really important, because then I can just leave whenever the fuck I want,
Don't rely on someone else. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was only maybe the first year where it took me it really took me time to get comfortable being at places where there's drinking and stuff. Nowadays I'm around it all the time, especially if I on tour or whatever. It's fucking everywhere. And
It's always I say it all the time. We are going to play a show. The crowd that is coming, it's their special night.
yeah,
They've saved up for this. They're going to have a party, and they expect us to be along for the ride.
yeah.
They don't know we've been doing this for 4 weeks straight, sometimes with no days off, sleeping in not the best conditions, and sometimes partying too hard the night before even. And you're like, I'm going to take it easy tonight. So yeah, I can definitely feel that.
Yeah. But yeah, after about a year, it was all right. And just having, support to call upon if I was ever feeling weird.
Well, congrats to you for your many years of sobriety. And thank you so much for sharing this important message. There was a time, though, we talked about recording. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, that you were into craft beer. It's sort of weird going back to it now, but I am interested in hearing when you were enjoying craft beer, what craft beers did you enjoy?
Absolute favorite was, and I never know if I'm pronouncing this right, the Rochefort 8.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
the
God.
Belgian.
So good. That the 8 was my favorite. And then
complex woody sour. Yeah.
Yeah, and deep, and the 10 was also very good. Yeah, a lot of Belgian stuff. And then I have these which I've saved for years and years and years and years because I think they're so awesome. I've got the Jester King black metal stout. This thing was like, I think it's 10% alcohol, super deep coffee chocolate. Definitely like one glass and you're full sort of thing. Really good though. I remember loving that. And then I've got the thrash metal one here too. Just super fucking rad, which is a blonde. I think it was like 9%. Yeah, 9.3. Very like, lighter, hoppy, wheat-y. Yeah, I think those are the ones I remember the most. It's been so long, but the Rochefort is one that really stuck in my head.
Delicious. And Jester King rules. Jeffrey Stuffings, if you're listening to this, I want to have you on the podcast. I have to say that.
And make a non-alcoholic beer. Make a non-alcoholic
please.
metal beer. That'd be tight, because that's something I've been getting more and more into. Is what they do with like non-alcoholic hoppy beer is pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And it's really taken off here in Quebec as well. In the States right now, there's Brewdog that does a really cool one for Lamb of God called Ghost Walker IPA. It's actually pretty darn good. It's got a little caramel bitter bite from the hops, caramel from the malts. Really very good, more of like a West Coasty style IPA. Very delicious. I recommend it. Let's talk about the soundtrack of your youth. Growing up in your parents' or guardians' house, what music was playing when you were not in control of the music? What music did your parents or guardians listen to?
Oh man, it was if my dad was playing music, which usually he was if it was a road trip, it was Bob Dylan, of who I'm named after. It was Bob Marley. It was like John Prime, a lot of Sad Bastard music. Stuff like that. Now, if my mom was playing music, my mom had a great taste in music. It was a lot of Radiohead, Like she gave me my first Bjork CD. She gave me my first, like, the Weezer's Blue album.
Yes.
Offspring Smash. So it was a lot of like alternative rock and some classic stuff too. A lot of Talking Heads. Let me think what else. That seems to be what I remember. Yeah. My mom kind of got me in at a young age to like the 90s sort of alternative rock scene of, Nirvana and, Radiohead or whatever. I don't know what genres you want to call them, but
yeah, no, definitely. It's like the 90s alternative rock scene. Yeah. My dad was a little bit older, I guess, and he was like a hair metal fan. And he fucking hated all the new stuff. Just
oh, really?
Despised it.
Yeah.
But I grew up listening to music in my dad's car, and that's where I discovered metal for the first time. A little bit softer hair metal, but definitely opened the doors to many things and led me to think anything with a guitar solo was dad music.
Yeah.
Which explains why I became a new metal child. But
yeah.
How about your first shows? Do you remember the very, very first show you went to go see live? Your first live music experience?
Like any genre show?
Yeah, exactly. Do that first experience to something like a production, and yeah.
Ricky Martin, 5th grade.
No way.
Yeah, man. Friend
That's
had
amazing.
tickets. Yeah, friend had tickets, and I thought it was super cool. I didn't know anything, No, I think it was 4th grade. It must have been 4th grade. Yeah, fucking living La Vida Loca.
Unbelievable. I've been lying the whole time on the podcast, and I realized just recently, I've always been saying that it's Slipknot or Korn, but I remember my aunt taking me to go see Fred Penner.
Fred Penner, I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, he's a Canadian children's sing.
Oh, okay.
A Canadian singer of children's songs. Songwriter. Like there's a word for this. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah, and I remember going to see him and being very interested. And Sharon and Lois and Bram too. I think they brought me to, also Canadian children's songwriters. Yeah. How about your first time on stage?
Like with a band?
Yeah, or just anything, your first experience having to get ready, performing something, and then stepping up onto that stage and doing it for the first time.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, this is embarrassing.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, it's not a cool story. Yeah, I remember I was at some sort of summer camp. It was like a day camp. It wasn't like a sleepaway, but your parents drop you off because both my parents work. And it was like, I was raised religious, so it was like a Christian camp, and it was super lame, and they knew I played guitar, and so they asked me to like learn all these like chord structures for these like super lame like
Christian sing-along songs.
Yeah. I didn't know how to play chords. All I knew how to play were like Rage Against the Machine songs. I could just play like heavy pentatonic scales, and I remember I spent like a whole week trying to learn like, okay, G to A, G to A, C to A, C to A, and I totally bombed on stage. I was not good. Also, I didn't care. Like at that point, I think I was in, I don't remember. I was getting older, but I was definitely like, this is some bullshit, I was like, I didn't really care. But I remember bombing on stage, and the guy who was also playing guitar with me he was like one of the counselors, kept like looking over at me, being like, what the hell is this kid doing? I mean, you ask like 11, 12-year-old to do something like that. I mean,
it's stressful. It's stressful that first time on stage, and how you cope with the nerves leading up to it. It's always a very interesting thing. How do you cope now? What has changed from back then, the 11-year-old Dylan getting ready for a show, to now when you step onto stage, that feeling right before you get up?
I don't know. I just fucking do it. I really try not to let I have to make sure I'm not getting in my head about anything. And just like I never know when I'm gonna get real nervous. Sometimes especially if we've been playing a lot, I'll walk on stage like I'm, walking into the fucking mechanic
Starbucks or something.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm just like, let's do it. And then sometimes I'm like, fuck, I feel super nervous right now, especially if there's friends in the audience. That's when I'm like,
worst. Hometown shows, the worst.
I don't like playing local shows because I'm just like, oh, my fucking friends are here. It's so,
I got to get my parents seated in the right spot.
Yeah,
so I know they're not going to get killed in the pit.
Yeah, exactly. I just try to stay in my body and just be, if I'm nervous, just be like, man, I feel uncomfortable right now, but I'm gonna lose my shit on stage. Let's do it.
Like cathartic release. Is that something that you had to adapt to back to being sober? Before, did you used to cope with your nerves via alcohol before a show? And then how was those first shows back when you couldn't do that?
Oh, I played so many terrible shows because I was too drunk.
Really? Okay.
Oh, so many. Yeah.
This is with Botanist?
No, I was sober. Let's see. I think by the time Botanist started performing live, I just got sober because that was around 2012. But before that, I had a band with Robert, who's the live drummer in Thief and also played Hammer Dulcimer and Botanist, Robert Chang. We had a band in Orange County for a couple of years and played out a lot, and I was just drunk all the time. Yeah, it was just like so sloppy and and then our rehearsals, even if I was sober during the shows, our rehearsals, I was so fucked up there too. Like
they were pointless rehearsals.
Yeah. And nowadays, making the switch. Trying to think of my first sober show. I don't remember. Being in Botanist, it was easy being on stage because we have the cloaks on,
Yeah.
I'm like, if I fuck up, no one's gonna know who I am off stage, So it really didn't bother me at all.
It's actually a good thing that happened that way too.
Yeah, it was a good transition. Yeah, exactly. But if it was like a huge show, then there's just nerves because I want to provide the best experience. But the transition wasn't too bad, both with Botanist and Thief.
That's amazing. I love it. Let's talk about Thief a little bit. The 16 Deaths of My Master just came out August 27th via Prophecy Productions. I love it. It's really fucking dark. Way more dark than the Map of Lost Keys. Take me to writing this one versus writing the previous one in the context of the pandemic. You mentioned that you're an introvert. You don't mind being on your own. I imagine you write, this is like a solo thing, you write everything on this. So how did this one differ than the last one in the context of the pandemic? I imagine for you it changed nothing, whereas a band, it changes a lot of stuff. We started writing stuff on Zoom together. So I'm curious how it was for a solo artist.
Oh, writing over Zoom sounds hellish.
It's horrible. It was the worst.
Okay, you blast beat here, but
no, it was just Chris. Chris hooked us up. He has this way of getting us directly into his studio, the audio, and then we could listen to that because he sends us some link. But then we all communicate via Zoom, and we were basically writing riffs and placing riffs at that point, not drums or anything. No.
Interesting. Yeah. It wasn't too different because I in terms of what's the word in terms of like technical approach, it was kind of the same. Like I still have a day job, so it's like it's disciplined work where I get off work and I start doing music, and I'm just try to maybe do 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day on weekdays.
Wow. But you got to put the work in. People don't understand that. People think things just happen.
No, and you gotta work when you're uninspired and you don't want to work also.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. You got to push yourself. How does like a song start? It's you're such a different musician that I've had on Vox&Hops. Typically I have a lot of metal musicians. I know how those songs are created. Where does a song start for Thief?
I would say oftentimes it starts by a mistake
Really?
or like a found sound. So, um, by mistake, I might be, I might be working on some sort of riff, or sound or whatever, and I'll fuck it up somehow and it'll sound really cool. I'm like, oh, that's a sick like bass sound I just made. And then I'll be like, I want that in a song. I'm gonna make a song all around that one sound. Or I use a lot of modular synth stuff if you're familiar with that. And so
just vaguely, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of electronic music, but I don't know how it's made.
Yeah. So just aimlessly patching and suddenly a sound will, come up and be like, well, that's fucking cool. I'm going to use that as a lead. Or I think it was more common for the first two albums but I still did it with 16 Deaths I'll go to the record shop and pick up a bunch of cheap classical chant foreign vinyl, and I'll just put it on and listen while I do whatever. And suddenly I'll hear, just a 4 or 8 bar phrase being chanted, and I'll be like, oh, that's it. I'm stealing that, and then I'll take that and I'll plop it in, my Ableton session, and then I'll start trying to write around it, and then maybe I'll have a verse or a chorus made, and then I'll branch out from there. That's pretty much how I made the entire first album. Was I just
sampling other?
Yeah, I would just put I would record a vinyl and put it in the session, and I would just go through it piece by piece, like a 4 bar loop until I heard something that was cool, and like, okay, I'm gonna with that. Yeah,
that's so tedious. This is my musician brain clicking. What are the legalities of sampling other music? I know a lot of hip hop artists do it. There was the whole Under Pressure, Vanilla Ice thing that happened. What are the legalities of what you're doing? Is it legal? Does it matter? Do people care? Has anyone ever written you say, that's my fucking song, dude?
No, it's totally not legal. But
you alter it enough?
I think I alter it enough. Oh, I would say 80% of the time I'm altering it enough that where no one will ever know. And aside from maybe 1 or 2 tracks, the samples are so obscure,
Yeah. They have to be that artist.
No one will know or care. Like I have this vinyl that is it's literally just some lady talking in German about a organ in Lubeck. And every now and then the organ will play something, and then she goes back to talking about it. And it's from 1978. Who's gonna know what that is or care?
It's very cool. I think it's so different. I love it. This is something that baffles my mind. I write in a group. You write solo. How do you know when it's good? Because I write stuff and I come in and I bounce it off the guys, or they do vice versa. I feel this is good. But to get that confirmation from someone else that it is good sort of solidifies the fact that it is good and we should continue working on it. How do you do that?
I'll let a track incubate for a long time,
Okay. Yeah. To get some distance.
Yeah. And let's say I have 3 or 4 new tracks that might be on the new album, I won't listen to them for 3 months. And then I'll come back to them, something like that. And then also, I bounce a lot of stuff off Chris, the Thief's live bassist. He's my neighbor here, and I really trust his ears and his taste. And I'll just be like, is this cool or does this suck? I really can't. I don't know.
But that's what I imagine it has to be, because they're so close to it.
Yeah.
And it's just you.
Yeah, but it's sort of like painting. Like, did Francis Bacon like show everyone his work and be like,
maybe he did. I don't know.
I don't know. That's
Maybe he had
true.
some neighbor. Maybe he had some neighbor named Chris. That
That's
was
true.
not.
Francis Bacon actually did have a neighbor that he would give him his paintings to burn, and he would burn so many of his paintings. And I was
Really
listening to this interview of his neighbor talking, and he's just like, if I would have known the millions of dollars I burned back then, I'd just like, oh my God. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
So on that same subject, are there a bunch of tracks that you've burned because they didn't live up to your standards?
I've probably got at least 70 tracks that
On a hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, over the last 5 years that, just they didn't quite cut it. I'm like, this is cool, but I'm never going to release this,
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe as a B-side one day, I don't know. Yeah, so many like half-finished ideas that I'm like, this isn't good enough to
go out. Yeah.
To go out. Yeah. But it's fine. It's learning experiences and experimenting and,
Continuation question on that, your opinion more so. These artists, these famous artists that become super huge and then they pass away and then their family finds these hard drives and then they release the shit. How would you feel if that happened?
I don't know. I'd be dead.
You're right now, you don't think they're ready for the world, but then because you're so famous and record companies and family members could make money off of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let them release them. Like, I might feel right now embarrassed by that, but like, I'll be dead, and especially if it's like my family or who, is making money, then super cool. And,
okay.
I don't care so much about if it was like, Atlantic Records or something, but, yeah. And I know, like, I always feel bad. I think I remember reading they're going to release, oh Jesus, what's his name? The guy who wrote Catcher in the Rye.
Salinger.
Yeah, they're going to release like Salinger's unfinished book or something, which he did not want released.
Yeah.
And people, I'm just like, he won't know. He's dead.
I want to talk about the lyrical content of 16 Deaths because it's shocking. It's blasphemous and very lots of talk of drug use a lot. So I think it's very shocking and it's very, you speak very clearly. And I remember not being so shocked about Map of Lost Keys, the lyrical content versus this one, or it's just maybe I was listening to the album knowing that we were going to have this conversation. So I was dissecting it a little bit differently. I don't know, versus just experiencing it. But some crazy lines that you've included. Like I did kill God and I fucked the witness. You say that twice and you switch it up for the second time to that.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about these blasphemous drug use lyrics, the content, the concept. What is the concept for this record? Because I feel like there's one.
Yeah. So the first part of your question, the like blasphemous part, I think I can probably answer it all. I'll just ramble and see where it goes. Yeah, I think the blasphemous part is one. I was raised Christian, so there is a rebelliousness in there. There is a sort of turning my, an official turning my back. But I think there is a spiritual component in that too. By no longer having something above or below you, by making everything equal, which you can do by pulling down, you sort of are creating a oneness of life where there's nothing separate from you. And so I think in a lot of like the debauchery and stuff that comes up in the album, there is what's the word? coffee. Transgression. Through transgressive acts, you can reach a sort of spiritualism. If you look at, if you're familiar with the Agori, the left-hand path of Hinduism, it's the dudes that meditate and crematoriums, spread ashes on them, drink out of skulls, drink their own piss, meditate on corpses. They involve themselves in the very worst, most defiled, taboo things, so that they see all things as God, not just something pure and wonderful as God. So there's sort of there is that perspective in especially the split with Botanist, but also in 16 Deaths. There is a searching for a spiritual life in that transgression, but there is also a taking it too far, which is a lot of the getting lost in that left-hand path, and getting, like you said, there's a lot of talk of drug use, and and also sometimes a line just sounds super fucking metal.
Very metal. I write to impress Chris Donaldson. When I write, because I write extreme lyrics. It's something I like to do. It's definitely not who I am. I'm not a horrible murderer, serial killer, Satanist. There's nothing wrong with that. But when I write, I want to impress Chris Donaldson. I want to come into the studio and deliver a line and him go, "Oh, fuck. That's so fuck." I write to impress Chris Donaldson. So who do you write to impress?
I'm going to do the Gaul answer. Satan. No, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I write to impress anyone. I just try, it's not even myself. It's just when I just write until it clicks in me, I'm like, that is how it should be. Like, that fits. That is the puzzle piece. This song has already existed somewhere in the ether, and I finally found
it. Wow.
Found the other piece.
I like that.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like that very much.
Yeah.
Being raised religious, and having diverged at such a young age, it sounds like you were 12. You were saying that you were already clicking that this wasn't happening. And I remember being around that age too, because I was raised very Catholic, and I chose, Marilyn Manson was a big thing in my group of friends, and it really started to change our discussions of what was going on. What do your parents, if you're still in contact with them, if they're still around, think about your lyrical content and Thief in general?
I don't know. I don't. I think they're just proud of me. My dad's he's a lot older and sort of off in his world, so I'm not sure he's heard too much of it. And my mom, I think she hears it and thinks it's cool, and I don't know if, hopefully she doesn't read the lyrics, but if you do, Mom, and if you're listening, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just
a form of self-expression. It's an art form.
Yeah. And I think I think transgression is a beautiful way of working with art, which the lyrics tend to be. This last album,
I think there's a lot of really banger songs. The Loverboy, catchy, is so evil and catchy, but it's super catchy. That was my intent for that song. I was like, I'm gonna make a catchy pop song that's super fucked up. I love it. Something that I love that you're doing is that you mentioned it just before, that the split with Botanist. I love that in this modern scene of music, even if you're not in the band anymore, you guys can still collaborate and work together. And that's modern music. Back in the day, it was black or white. You were with or you weren't with, and there was drama. And I really, really like that. So I think it's very cool you're still working with them, despite the fact you not being in the project anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And Otrabor and I, the guy who is botanist, you know, like we're still good friends. Yeah. And it's like the way he sets it up is like there's like a botanist family, you know, and Robert, who used to play Hammer Dulcimer, is in it too. And it's, you know, if he's going on tour, you know, he's hit me up before, but you know, a year or two ago and being like, hey, would you want a tour or whatever? And you're never quite out of the botanist family once you get in, you know, so it's nice.
It's a good thing. So it's an easy, yes, let's just do a split. Let's just cover more ground.
Yeah, I knew he had a whole bunch of, he records pretty prolifically. And, you know, I had 16 deaths done, but I had all these, you know, 5 or 6 other tracks that I really liked, but they just didn't fit on the album.
Different vibe.
Yeah, different vibe. And, you know, the split has a lot more live instrumentation. It's like live drums. There's actual guitar as the focal point. So, you know, I hit him up and I'm like, hey, I've got these extra songs. You know, do you want to do a split? I know you've got extra shit. And Prophecy said they'd put it out if you're down. So, yeah.
Very, very cool. I had Justin Moranga of Dune Altar Records. He put out your first one, right? Am I crazy there?
No, he put out, I did I did a cover song.
That's it. He put out. That's it.
For his charity release.
Yeah. Love Ancestors. Come back, Ancestors. I'm ready for you.
Yeah. Love it, Justin. He's a great guy.
Very cool. I have been filling the void of performing live by conducting these interviews. Right before I sit down, as the day approaches, I get that same little feeling of when I'm about to step on stage, the little goosebumps. Am I prepared? Am I going to fuck up? That's how I've been filling the void of performing live. How have you been filling the void of stepping on stage?
I don't know. I like performing live, but I didn't really miss it.
Being the introvert.
Being the introvert, but also it was nice to have a break because Thief is still at the point where it's like, if I want to do a tour, I have to do an insane amount of legwork. You know, I'm booking the tour. I am not using a booker and everything. And so it was sort of nice to have a year excuse. It'd be like, I don't have to do it.
It's not my fault.
And it's not my fault. I don't have to feel bad about it. You know, so that
was my first summer home. I was like, I don't have to go do European festival tours and I get to hang out with my kids all summer. It's not my fault. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you're sick and you get to lay in bed for like a week and you're just like, I have to do it. Nothing I can do. But yeah, I mean, I kept pretty busy, so I didn't quite notice it, but I'm ready. I'm poking around for some sort of, you know, small West Coast tour early mid 2022. It's pretty booked out there though.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough. Yeah, everyone wants to play. Everyone's released something and everyone wants to play.
Yep.
You know who you should tour with? You know what I think when I hear like Loverboy? There's this band from Denmark called Priest.
Okay, Priest.
Yeah, whispers, I don't know if it's true, whispers that they're ex-Ghost people.
Oh, let me write this down.
But it's dancey, dark electronic music.
Okay, cool. I'll check them out.
I feel like, especially the Loverboy song would work. You guys would work. The other stuff here much darker than them, but I think it would work. You mentioned that you're enjoying non-alcoholic beers now. If you could create a Thief branded non-alcoholic beer, what style of beer would it be and what would you call it? Because I love collabs. I've released 33 collabs over the past 3 years. I'm all about them.
Dang, that's an excellent question. I like this. I think it would be, I'm so torn. I would like to have a Belgian style beer, and I would call it I don't know what I'd call it.
16 deaths of my master.
Yeah, maybe 16 deaths, you know.
Just 16 deaths, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be pretty rad. Yeah, I think for 16 Deaths, I feel like it'd be a Belgian. But I feel like if I had one called after the first album, it would be like a deep, chocolatey, malty. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just what I imagine drinking it.
I love it. I'm excited for that. Any brewery out there want to make a Belgian for Thief, non-alcoholic, hit me up and I'll make it happen. It most definitely doesn't happen to you anymore. I typically wrap up with this question, but it doesn't happen to you anymore because you don't drink anymore. But back when you used to drink, what was your hangover cure?
Fucking greasy Mexican food, Gatorade, and like an honest wish for death. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Dylan, thank you so much for taking the time, hanging out with me, talking about your life, music, talking about no longer enjoying craft beers, but enjoying life instead, even more. This is an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed myself. And everyone, please go check out his 2 new releases that came out this year, the 16 Deaths of My Master and his split with botanist Citratrix and Diamond Brush. They're both just killer stuff. Dylan, thank you so much. This ruled. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers to you.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right today. You know that I love and appreciate that. Man, was this ever an amazing conversation. I was just so stoked to finally have a chance to chat with Dylan. I've been a fan of his music for quite some time. This is not necessarily metal, but it is very disturbing. And if you have not checked out Thief, the 16 Deaths of My Master, you absolutely should. It actually made it into my top 10 albums of 2021. It is a great record, and I had an absolute blast connecting with Dylan, and I'm still thinking of some of the things that we spoke about throughout this conversation many months later, because we recorded this quite a few months ago, and I've been saving it for Sober February. Massive thanks to you, Dylan. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me. Now, if you enjoyed this Vox&Hops episode, you should sign up to the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast mailing list. You can do that on my website, voxandhops.com. That's VOXANDHOPS.com. And when you do that, you shall receive 1 email a week containing all of the details of everything that has happened throughout the past week in the world of the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast, including all the details for any episodes which I dropped throughout that past week, if I've been a guest on someone else's podcast, as well as any little information on any new projects that I have in the works before I announce them to the public. And you will get to see the album reviews, which my album review crew have dropped throughout that past week. And you'll get to see which albums Jerry Monk, the metal architect himself, has added to the Brutal Awakenings playlist that week. The Brutal Awakenings playlist is packed with the best, newest, most extreme music that drops every week. It's available on both Apple Music and Spotify, and it's exactly what you're looking for. Trust me. There is just so much going on in the world of the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast. I would hate for you to miss a single thing, so please sign up to the mailing list. The Vox&Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts. I hope you have a glorious rest of the week. I will be back on Friday with another episode for Vox&Hops Sober February 2022, which is presented by Pitch Black North, the Satanic Tea Company. But until then, please remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox&Hops heads.